to all of the industry leaders, not only in this country, to the whole world also. Many of the countries, nearly about 6 continents, people have participated and they are giving their valuable ideas and suggestions also. In the process, in this entire summit, simultaneously we are conducting nearing about 28 sessions like this to take their valuable suggestions and ideas for the growth of our state and our vision. Thank you very much for once again for coming all the way. Let me begin with a story close to our hearts. 2 decades ago, Hyderabad skies promise, but ring road, a visionary PPP, annuity model that private partners built in record time, easing congestion for millions and parking economic corridors that now pulse with pharma giants and tech hubs. That single project did not just move vehicles, it accelerated Telangana's destiny, proving PPs turn bold visions into thriving reality. At this Telangana Rising Summit, as we unveil Vision 2047's roadmap to a $3 trillion economy, the truth is stark. Our $200 billion GST and 37% investment rate yield 70 or 75 US billion yearly. Yet, a 30 billion gap looms today, expanding relentlessly. PPs are the engines for core urban, in the sense cure, peri-urban pure, and rural agri rare zones, targeting $1 trillion economy by 2034. Unleashing private capital for metros, solar parks, and skill hubs while freeing public funds for human development and net zero ambitions. 3 fiscal realities compel this: GST limits tax to GSDP hikes, FRBM caps borrowing at 3% of GSDP, dwindling household savings, starve long-term projects. PPs break these chains, channeling institutional funds into transport, renewables, and digital infrastructure with smart risk allocation for scale and efficiency. We have nailed it before. For example, Hyderabad International Airport's lasting concession with public oversight. Our outer ring road, rapid success, all approvals, stable rules, and fair resolutions. Global examples guide us. Chills $15 billion via standardized contracts. Australia's affordable water reliability, UK's outcome-driven hospitals, Canada's transport public-private partners in Vancouver attracting pension funds. Vision 2047 envisages private capital playing a dominant role, with public-private partnerships contributing approximately 10 to 15% of total investment. This contribution is vital for reducing fiscal pressure and accelerating long gestation projects in mobility and clean energy and social infrastructure. By anchoring investment in well-structured public-private partnerships, Telangana creates a scalable financing environment aligned with the long-term goals. Areas of public-private partnerships: expansion in Telangana, transport and urban mobility. As urban centers expand, as you are all aware, the Telangana state is more or less a city. It is expanding in such a way that is how government are also designed like core urban regional economy, like within the outer ring, inside of the outer ring road, beyond outer ring road, in between regional ring road is peri-urban regional economy, and beyond regional ring road, rural agriculture regional economy. That's how the state has been, we have designed to expand our urban area also. As urban centers expand, demand for metros, BRT corridors and road systems will grow more and more. Public-private partnerships can support construction and operations through predictable payment structures, ensuring high service quality for capital-intensive projects. Renewable energy and emerging technologies. To contribute to India's 500 gigawatt renewable target is also a huge target, where Telangana can use public-private partnership for solar parks and hybrid zones. Long-term power purchase agreements reduce developer risk, which is possible in the energy sector. Public-private partnerships are also applicable to grid-scale storage, green hydrogen and industrial decarbonization. Logistics and industrial infrastructure, if you see, supporting sectors like pharmaceuticals and electronics requires robust logistics. Warehousing, cold chains and multi-modal parks can be delivered via public-private partnerships, where the state provides land and connectivity while private partners fund facilities. Even digital and data infrastructure also. Artificial intelligence, cloud computing demands significant digital infrastructure today. Public-private partnerships models can facilitate data centers and fiber networks by combining public utility provisioning with private technology investment, positioning Telangana as a digital hub. Healthcare also, public-private partnerships can expand diagnostics and hospitals with payments linked to service quality. Education partnerships can support digital classrooms and skill centers. As already we have started skill centers in our state, like one skills university which is already started here in this Bharat Future City, where we are conducting this seminar. It is on the construction of the classes already started in other campus. Maybe very soon, in another 3-4 months, we are going to inaugurate that building also here. Apart from that, way back when we started nearing about some ITIs, nearing about 65 ITIs, old ITIs. The moment we came to power, the present government, we have converted and all these ITI centers as advanced technology centers, where the skills are taught there in those centers. And now apart from 65, another 40-45 centers we have newly sanctioned, nearing about 105 centers in the entire state. Now the skills centers are started with public-private partnerships. Many of the industry leaders involved in this skills university and advanced technology centers also. Their participation, they are deciding the syllabus, they are selecting the academicians, and they are teaching and taking them into their companies as their workforce or talented human resource. So, outcome-based contracts here, workforce contracts tied to job placement and skill development programs. And water and sanitation also, performance-based models can enhance operational efficiency. Advanced PPPs tools for Telangana's investment agenda. To attract long-term capital, the state can employ sophisticated instruments, partial risk guarantees, mitigate regulatory risk to attract institutional investors. Outcome-based financing links payments to specific indicators, learning outcomes like aligning public goals with private operations. Blended capital combines public capital with private investments for innovation-driven sectors. Revenue-linked models like strengthen viability in sectors with stable user fees. So these kinds of areas where all the public-private partnerships can be taken a serious partnership kind of a thing, and your core area where you can really concentrate and join with us in the Telangana Rise for the 2047 our vision of reaching our $3 trillion economy by 2047. So request is to financial institutions like ADB, World Bank or Blackstone or any other, for example, the other friend is also here, like all your people can think about the Telangana. Telangana is the one state in this country which is attracting not only the states of this country, the whole world is looking towards Telangana. The kind of infrastructure what we have already given and what we are going to give to the state are going to be a biggest strength for the investors, and it is a heaven for the investors to come here and to take part in our rise. So I request all the financial institutions to take part. Our vision document and Telangana's $3 trillion ambition demanding a substantial investment gap that public resources alone cannot cover this dream. Making all efficient solutions, maintaining physical production. Sandeep Kumar Sultania Garu, moderator of the transparent contracts and realistic risk allocation. Used strategically, public-private partnerships will be instrumental in converting Telangana's development goals into concrete infrastructure and social outcomes. So, once again, I'll conclude. I'll not take much of your time. We are all waiting for your valuable suggestions also. My only request to all the participants, please go through our document which we are going to release, and wherever you find you want to invest and the state is ready to invite you, welcome you, and you all aware that Telangana's Atma is hospitality. Our hospitality is our philosophy, and whoever comes here to invest and whoever joins with us in the rise of Telangana, we will treat them as our family members and we will embrace them and carry them along with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Deputy Chief Minister has emphasized the importance of the PPP and the success which Telangana had in many of the important projects like ORR, Metro Rail, Skill University. So these are all very, very successful projects which Telangana has already executed before. And he has also emphasized upon the limitations of the state government in raising the finances. So that's where the importance of the public-private partnership becomes very, very important. Our Deputy CM has also emphasized that, as we have kept a target of $1 trillion by 2034 and $3 trillion by 2047. So our investment rate, which is at present the 37%, has to go to 50%. So for that we require more funding for accelerated development, accelerated growth rate. So so our Honorable Deputy CM has made it very, very clear in the beginning itself as to why we are pitching for public-private partnership. And our experience in the past, basically we are trying to convey that our state is very, very ready and poised for this kind of investment. Our Deputy CM has also said that today evening our Telangana vision document is going to be released, and all the participants are requested to go through it, and wherever there is a possibility of investment and doing something more concrete technologically, I think the state will be welcoming all of you. With this, we will move to the next part of the question. I'll ask Harsha Khubchandani, that is for future ready infrastructure. With plans for logistic parks, industrial corridors and increased energy needs, how can PPPs be leveraged to build and finance future ready infrastructure that is resilient to climate change and driven by frontier technology moving beyond conventional projects? Harsha.
So, thank you for having me here. I think future ready means many things, and you rightfully pointed out. One is resilience to climate change, resilience to natural disasters, and the other is being prepared for technology upgradations. So we'll take the climate change first. I think it is a reality now that our temperatures are rising, climate patterns are changing, and when you are doing the due diligence and project preparation for logistics projects, for warehouses, for industrial corridors, you have to consider that the average temperature of the last 10 years is not going to be the temperature in the future. It is going to be much higher temperature, chances of flood might be higher, all those things then need to go into your design of your project. So you have to be prepared for higher temperatures, you need to prepare your drainage design accordingly, you need to prepare your cold chain accordingly, you need to prepare the warehouse design in such a way that the temperature when it is very high also your products are fine. Same for industrial corridors, the road might crack at very high temperatures. These are all small examples of how the climate change is affecting our projects today. It means that the maintenance cost is higher for such projects. It means that the developer who took the risk of those projects before is now not making the profits that he thought he would. So all of these things need to be incorporated in the project stage, in the project design stage, and all projects that the government of Telangana is now considering on a PPP basis should take up a climate change assessment as part of the technical due diligence part. The other now is the technology readiness of our projects. Now, this is something that cannot be predicted today for a 30-year project. Chances are that for the next 10 years, you might still be able to predict technology, but beyond that, it is very difficult to. This requires your contracts to be flexible. It requires that the parties approach projects in the spirit of a partnership and not that, oh, technology is changed, you have to push the developer. The technology also has a cost. So some and some understanding and consultation between parties is required at such stage, and the contract, the PPP contract has to be designed to accommodate the excessive cost from better technology which might need to come in. These are just some examples. But the bottom line of what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the work has to be done at the preparation stage. Please prepare projects carefully, take the time for the due diligence, and then when you bring them to the market, the industry prefers certainty around projects and well-prepared projects.
Thank you, Harsha. I think you have touched the moot point of this climate, readiness, where it's very, very important that when we prepare the plan or prepare the DPR, it is very important that we keep the climate readiness in mind and future rising temperature in mind. And she also spoke about technology, readiness. As we all know, the technology is moving very, very fast, and the technology which is today may not be there after 10 years. It may be something else. So flexibility in the plan is also very, very important when we do the PPP, so that investor is very, very confident about it. So thank you, Harsha. And I will move to the next question. I request Mr. Gauri Sankar about green infrastructure. Given Telangana's focus on green energy, what innovative PPP models can be used to attract private capital for large-scale renewable energy projects and sustainable public transport systems while ensuring a viable return on investment for partners?
Honorable Deputy Chief Minister Garu, Shri Sandeep Garu, fellow panelists and dear delegates, chala santosham ivala participate chese dantlo in this great event that is being organized at such a short notice. On the specific question of what models can be adopted, I think it's fairly simple. I mean, PPP projects evolved because these are largely very, very long-term projects. Some of them take 20, 30 years. Financial viability is quite challenging, and that's the reason why it was felt that a public and a private enterprise should jointly solve for it. Otherwise, each entity on its own would find it challenging. So in the most important question of green energy and more sustainability linked infrastructure, the models, even before we get into the models, I think the critical aspect that one has to address is how is the risk being quantified and how is the risk being mitigated. Because for any project to be deemed attractive for private capital, it has to be first bankable. For projects to be bankable, as all of us know, Andhra home loans seasuntaru, it's you know how banks do their diligence and know what are all the questions they ask. So any project should first qualify the bankability aspect of it, and that means the risks have to be quite clearly quantified and the risks have to be quite clearly mitigated. That is the first step in the process of making any PPP project viable in that front. And the second thing is, Hyderabad and the state of Telangana is at the forefront of technology. Today, if you see where, as the Honorable Deputy Chief Minister was mentioning, Hyderabad has leapfrogged into the, becoming a technology and innovation center, and, irrespective of who has, been, coming to look into India, they all want to end up a large part of their share of investments and a large part of people coming and setting up shop end up being in Hyderabad because it is a technology center. And in terms of for green energy per se, because this is something which is absolutely critical for any industry that you are operating, whether you are in the hardcore renewable space for its own sake, or if you are in the IT space, or you are in data centers, or you are in any other logistics or transportation, how you power it through green energy is becoming very critical. To fund these projects, therefore, these long-term projects, in addition to risk mitigation, some form of blended financing can be looked into. Wherein you have capital, you have different tiered capital. Private capital should be taking the larger portion of the risk. There are public funds that should be taking, a lesser portion of the risk. For instance, you could come up with public financing of, let's say, for every 100 rupees that public puts in, private capital has to put in 900 rupees. and the 1,000 rupees goes into implementation of a project. And the risk and rewards can be, linked in the manner that who takes the bigger risk gets a bigger reward and who takes the lesser risk get the lesser reward. This sort of gives us more comfort that for private capital that there is someone else, the local communities through the government and through the public are actually underwriting the risks of the project and are serious about the execution and the completion of the project. So that is one community-based private partnership model, which I think can be seriously looked into. The other part is because this lends itself into sustainability, green energy. Sustainability linked loans, this has to be sort of, definitely be made part of the project. And the project also has to be broken up into enough pieces. The one other challenge we typically have in PPPs is that it's contractually very laborious. It's a long-term contract, and as Harsha was saying, you have many things change during the course of the contract, and usually this leads to a lot of wishful requirements sometimes coming up, and there is a long-term interest of the private capital and the government, but the contracts who are working on are interested in the short-term nature of their execution. So you need to have mechanisms wherein both of these can be bridged together, and sustainability linked loans which are measurable kind of ensures that there is incentive and there is cost optimization. Three,
Sandeep. Sandeep Kumar Sultania Garu, moderator of the
financing where 10 from the public exchequer and from private. I think this is a very important point you have touched. Arora Garu. Telangana is reportedly exploring property monetization to bridge resources. What are the best practices for using PPP area to maximize returns for the state while maintaining public trust and avoiding speculative bubbles?
Thank you. Honorable CM sir and Mr. Sandeep, thank you for having us. Thank you to the entire audience for joining us here. Sir, you pointed out rightfully that the PPP model is not essentially about maximizing the economic value. It has to be balanced with the social impact and how do you maximize the value for the general public. So that fine line that you have to tread, I think we have to be very, very mindful of where do you draw that line. And I think coming from a business community, I think we always think even from a PPP perspective as the way to do it most efficiently is just to see it as any other organization and streamline the entire decision making. Now, obviously there are certain key components of every PPP model and you can have a playbook around this and then customize this to a specific project. So to focus on some of the critical parts, right? What could be the reserve price for the land, right? Now, it's important to have the right assessment of the fair value. As a government, you obviously don't want to fire sale anything, but at the same time, you don't want to discourage private participation. It's easier to get anchored to where the last bidding happened and adjust it for inflation, but markets change, the systems change, the priorities change, and hence every time we are trying to do a PPP, it's important to do a fair assessment and have a thought process around what the base price is going to be for this. I think the second aspect of this is exactly how do you monetize this land bank. Now there are various models. You can do an upfront sale, you can do a long-term lease, or you can do a mix and match. Again, it depends upon which asset, which market, and what are the priorities. In some of the city center projects, probably the private capital would be keen to front load their entire capex, but in some of the peripheral locations where you want to encourage them to come to, you might need to give them concessions where the lot of capex is not front loaded, but essentially in terms of the lease payments, it's given over time. I think the third critical component of any ideal public-private partnership, I would say, is how do we ensure that the execution contract is watertight and there is no speculative bidding. So whether it's about the lockouts on further sale, whether it's about allocating a particular piece of land for affordable housing, or some of those, or standardizing the entire unit mix and pricing mix to ensure that everybody is aware of what the variables are and what are we playing around to create value or generate returns in this PPP. And I think from a government perspective, when you put all these three things together, you overlay this with how do you actually account for this. And from an accounting perspective, I would say again two critical bits. One would be to be very, very transparent about off-balance sheet liabilities in terms of any state guarantees that you are giving or any kind of subsidies that you are giving which are long-term in nature should definitely have a sunset clause and very, very transparently disclosed to the private party as well as to the public in general. And also from a revenue perspective, these are capital inflows. So not to confuse them with a recurring revenue expenditure and not plan your budgets around this. And effectively to keep improving this efficiency and to ensure that the best practices, probably it's not a bad idea to have a dedicated PPP a committee or a land monetization committee which effectively consists of technocrats who are maximizing value for the government and public as well. Like from our perspective, we would say that government is an entity which public is a shareholder. So you set up that committee who works for the government, who works for the shareholders of the government to maximize the value.
Good, Mohit. I think you have touched a very, very important point, particularly about this different mode of PPP financing. You spoke about, when we talk about land monetization, you spoke about outright sale, you spoke about lease model, and it depends on, the investor whether he wants to offload the, front load the capex, or if he is not interested in front loading the capex. So you spoke about different models, then you spoke about execution of watertight, timeline. So I think that is very, very important. And last point which you said about dedicated PPP committee, I think is an important suggestion which we'll definitely discuss upon once the conference is over. And now I'll move to the next question, which I'll request again to Mohit. Affordable housing. How can PPP models be structured to accelerate the delivery of high quality, affordable housing, especially in fast growing urban centers like Hyderabad and second tier cities, ensuring this growth is inclusive and aligns with Vision 2047?
Sure, sir. Sir, as Blackstone, affordable housing is very close to our heart. We do this in big way in some of the urban centers, including New York and London. Again, I think it's very critical, as you rightly pointed out, with a lot of immigration happening into some of these commercial centers and land prices and house prices going up. It's important that the affordable housing is focused, and it has to be focused through a PPP partnership to ensure that the housing remains affordable for the people who are coming into some of these urban centers for better opportunities. Again, coming from Mumbai, I would say, sir, there are various ways to structure this PPP. One is obviously cross-subsidy program that we see a lot in Mumbai, which is typically called a slum rehabilitation plan, or an SRA as we call it, where the government gives you the land. It might be encroached or otherwise freely available. The private party comes in, they have a little bit of a market units or a market apartments that are sold at market prices, and at the same time the profits from them actually goes ahead and compensates the affordable component of that development. So it's a mixed development with an affordable component and a market component, where the market component subsidizes that affordable component. So that's one way to look at it, which we are seeing in Mumbai being done big time. The other way could be just the viability gap fundings that you do, and that are more critical, I would say, in some of the periphery areas where the market prices of even the market units are not that high, or the land prices are not that high, that actually giving land at a concession is adding or is ensuring that the project becomes viable. So at which point in time there is an absolute amount of capex that government might need to support to ensure some other periphery projects are also taken off. But I think equally important, sir, and that we are seeing a lot in some of the developed markets, and we would want to see big time in India as well, and specifically Telangana, is the entire concept around rental housing. This is something that can very well take care of a lot of this population which is coming in and moving out. A lot of this mobile population where you have affordable rental housing for them. We've taken a big initiative under PMAY. But if you compare India to some of the other developed economies, what you see typically in India, why rental housing has not taken off, it's today probably like 15% of the market, vis-a-vis 40-50% in some of the developed markets, is one, the rental yields are very low. The rental yields in a house in India are probably close to 2-3%, the financing rate of 8%, vis-a-vis some of the markets like US and Europe, where the rental yields are close to 6 and the cost of financing is 5, right? So the delta where a lot of private parties are not able to come and actually support affordable housing. And despite these positive yields, a lot of government, like in US, sir, if you're building an affordable housing, you actually get construction cost linked tax credits. So essentially, if you're spending $100, you get that $100 back as tax incentives, which you can monetize over the next 10-15 years. And what these developers do is actually discount that cash flow upfront and secure capital from the private equity guys and reduce their overall cost, right? In some other countries in Europe, including Germany, they essentially give 60% of the cost of construction as loans, which are at very marginal rates. They are backloaded in terms of principal repayment, and actually if you deliver ahead of the milestone, they waive off a part of the principal. So some of those concessionary terms and support from the government have led to affordable housing being a big proportion of overall housing in some of the developed markets, and we would want to see a lot of that coming in India and specifically in Telangana. Again, like any other private partnership and more so in affordable, I think the margins will be very, very thin. So it's important to ensure that in terms of the timelines and the cost, it's run very, very efficiently. So from government perspective, in the giving up the land, ensuring there are probably pre-approved building plans, standardized units, standardized prices, right? And a lot of clarity in around what is going to happen in terms of the policy initiatives over the next 3 to 5 years, I think will give a lot of confidence to the private parties to actually come up and share a little bit of this burden around the affordable housing.
I think what Mohit just raised about this rehabilitation plan, I think the Mumbai has a great example of Dharavi slum rehabilitation. So I think that's a good idea. Then you spoke about this viability gap funding. I think with the cost of land rising, the cost of housing also is rising very much in most of the urban parts of the country. So I think that's also a good idea. And you will be happy to note that our government is going for massive housing for poor people. Almost 20 lakh housing in next 4-5 years is the plan, and the cost of one housing is more than 5 lakh rupees. So that's going to be a big housing project. Almost 2.5 lakh to 3 lakh houses have been grounded. They are getting constructed. So housing is definitely a priority for the government, and we are also thinking of the middle class housing, and that's where the whole challenge is. So in that case, your rental housing scheme which you said, you mean to say the government should construct houses and give it on rent, because in private sector it doesn't work out because the rate of returns on rent is much lesser than the bank interest. So I think good ideas have been given by you, so we'll definitely discuss all those points, and appropriate decision the government will take in due course. Now my next question to Mr. Gauri Shankar again about the alignment of vision. How can the state ensure that individual PPP projects, which often have a 20 to 30 years lifespan, remain agile and aligned with the evolving priorities of the Telangana Rising 2047 vision, especially with the shifts in technology and climate goals?
That's a very interesting question, and like I was mentioning before, one of the most critical risks that are there is the long-term nature of the PPP partnership that happens, but the world evolves, and of late the world is evolving much faster. The first step would ideally be to break up a long-term contract into multiple smaller contracts. There can be a core delivery that is required, and then there can be smaller packages that are around. And some of these smaller packages can then be, instead of giving out one tender and fixing one contract which tries to bind all the moving parts in one framework, and then which we'll struggle to unwind as things evolve. Break up the contracts into multiple pieces so that each time as things evolve, you have smaller packages to concentrate on. This helps in understanding the issue that is being addressed better at the early stage itself. And also when things start evolving, it is easier to address those on a piecemeal basis. And because it will be in multiple packages, you could involve multiple partners for each of these packages, which means that you are having better oversight and more participation into these contracts, and it gets vetted. No, the more diligence get done by multiple parties, the more risk assessment happens, and the more things that can go wrong and that can be done better is coming out in the upfront itself. And the second thing which one could look at is actually kind of reimagine how you measure performance itself. If I mean, let's take an example. Let's say the government wants to build a road, and the road building is required as a part of decongestion. There's a lot of congestion, and that is affecting public transport, and therefore you need a bigger road and a wider road. So the contract is going to say that, okay, we are going to lay a 10-kilometer road. Who is, and this is the timeline we wanted. These are the specifications. Who is the best party that can come and deliver this? Could we relook at it in a different manner as a performance-based, which is, I know it is simplistic, maybe difficult, but just for an example, instead of saying a 10-kilometer road, can the government say that I want a partner who is going to deliver me a solution of making people reach from point A to point B in 15 minutes? That distance is 10 kilometers, but that is the physical metric of it. What essentially people, public need is, what is the time that they are going to take to commute? So if you actually look at what is being tendered out and what is the expectation, there is a divergence. I don't want to name the city, but a city, I flew in from a city to Hyderabad. There the distance is very short, but the time to travel is humongously long. So in one way, the government may be meeting its requirement by tendering it 10 kilometers, but if it's going to take you 2 hours to travel, it defeats the purpose. So can the government look at performance-based measures when they sort of look at these PPP contracts so that they are much more agile? With that you bring in, when you put that post that problem set to professionals, they are going to come up with solutions which may not have been thought through initially itself. And the third thing I would say is that in most cases, the preparatory work that is required is a lot more, which gets underestimated. When a PPP project is envisaged, it is an idea, but it requires a lot of technical assessment and a lot of due diligence, which requires a lot of funding. So I would recommend that the government actually look at setting up some fund, allocate a fund which actually looks at diligencing the projects much more rigorously, and so that when those contracts are coming to the market, they can be easily understood and they can be easily sort of tendered and participants at it. It does cost a little bit upfront, but it saves a lot of time value of money for the government. The government may be putting 10 rupees today, but if it's able to save 6 months or 12 months of timeline, the amount of benefit that it is able to pass on to the eventual public is humongous in terms of value. And the last point, to bring in the private participants ahead of time. There is a lot of times when private participants are happy to do pro bono work with the government to find out solutions. They may not end up winning the tender, but that is okay. But the private participants are more than willing, as a part of their social responsibility, to work with governments to assess very rigorously solutions that can be provided and what can be and because it's an evolving technology and each of us have worked with, no one person knows everything. The multiple people, multiple sets of professionals face different sets of challenges, and if all of them are coming together before the idea gets frozen and before it is getting tendered out, I think it can be managed and can be structured much better, and the solution, the outcome of that and the benefit that accrues to the public will be much more. So that's my short view on this one.
I think Mr. Gaurisagar, you have raised a very important point, and it is true that whenever we tender a project in the sense that we want a road project from A to B kind of this thing. But this is the first time we are hearing that we should talk about outcome-based project. Like we want to travel from, let us say, Gachibowli to, let us say, Tukkuguda or this Bharat Future City. How much time it should take, and accordingly project should be designed. That's what you are basically trying to convey. I think it's a very, very important point for all the policy makers to understand this, and I think this point will carry on from here. And second point which you told about this, this preparatory work which basically goes before the, PPP projects. So you were basically suggesting some funds to be earmarked for this purpose so that, the many of the agencies can use the fund and go for an effective solution for the problems being faced by the government. And that's what are the 2 points which you raised. Now my next question will go to Miyooka again, is regarding the social sector. This beyond economic growth, how can PPPs in social infrastructure such as healthcare facilities, education hubs,
Sandeep Kumar Sultania Garu, moderator of the today's session. Innovative PPs, harnessing private capital towards public goods. He is our Principal Secretary Finance, and Miyooka, Country Director ADB, Sri Mohit Aroraji, MD Blackstone, Gauri Shankar Nagabhushanam, CEO Capital India Trust, Capital Land India Trust. Harsha Kupchandani, Investment Officer, International Finance Corporation, and other esteemed guests and participants of this session. A very good afternoon to all of you. And let me also express my thanks and appreciation for coming all the way in a short notice for this Telangana Global Summit 2025, in which we are releasing a document, Telangana Rising 2047 vision document, which is aimed at $3 trillion economy. By 2047, we wanted to achieve to that economy. So keeping that in our mind,